Rob, have you been following the news about Ionic and Celsius?
Yes, in bits. In bits. I do have my focus outside of Twitter at the moment, but I try to follow as much as possible. I have seen the updates that you provided, and I think everyone here that is joining is also reading the updates. It's important. Still, some of the people are trying to leave it behind us because it's so long time ago. But especially for the people who have the options to get stocks in the mining company or have the stock in the mining company, it's important that they get updates. So I think it's good that everyone who is joining in is trying to get an update on this, and I will follow the lead and try to manage the conversation as good as possible.
Yeah, basically, I just want to give a small summary. And there are a few issues that I think some people might not have caught on the court that was said. And by underlining those things, you can even read more into what happened in this time period. So I think I will start. This is being recorded so people can later just review. I will open the space, of course, in a few minutes for some questions and some debates. Everyone is welcome to join. For me, there are no stupid questions. It's just you just might lack the knowledge, and I think we are welcome to provide. I think the community can help each other by providing knowledge and context, and I think everyone ends up winning in the end. So do not be afraid to expose your fears, your doubts, to ask for better context, the numbers. So with that, I'm going to start. And let's start at the beginning. Let's start at emergence. So when we speak about emergence, I think it's around January 31 when the company basically got finished. The financial aspect of Celsius network ended, and all the assets were distributed to creditors or vested in a mining company. And if you go look at the filing from Form 10, I think that guy with a profile that is a monkey, little book life or something like that. He basically showed up how much money was vested into the company, and you will see that 195 million was vested in the company, plus around 540 Bitcoin. But we all know that the initial size was 225 million, okay? Now, I didn't review this, but I'm pretty sure somewhere on the plan, at emergence, Celsius would immediately pay a construction fee to the company. So that was probably the difference between the 225 million and the 195 million that it's on the Form 10, in the amended Form 10. The Form 10 is basically the data that is put on the CEC for them to list the company. It's public and you can look it up. So by looking at those numbers, you can realize how much money was immediately put in the construction of Cedarvale, which is my recollection. I did not review this, but I believe this is correct. So now you have 195 million and 500 Bitcoin. You also had 4.9 million in cash and payables. The majority was payables around I think 4.6. Payables are basically reserve money to pay the bills, the expenses that the company requires. So it's important to know that value because that will be discounted in the expenses. Now, there are also a lot of Celsius, through the process of bankruptcy, filed some monthly reports, which it highlighted at least the cash flow, how much Bitcoin they were mining, and you can figure out more or less the growth that they had, the expenses, and I think the construction on Midlands was finished towards the end of September, around that date. So I think the most accurate and more easy to understand, or the sheets or the numbers that you can like use to have a forward looking of the financials or the expenses and the profits that the company might have, is probably in those 3 months before emergence. That will be November, January, December. Those should be the most accurate. So if you look at the expenses, if you just sum the expenses, the insurance, the hosting fees, and then you multiply it by 6 months, which was so basically on 31 of July, once the company did the shareholder update, it passed 6 months since emergence. So you can more or less calculate the total expected expenses. Now that's a round number. It's more like a reference point. It's not a pure data value, but it's something that I think makes sense to have contextualized. So if you multiply those expenses by 6, which is the number of months that the company was operating, it's more or less totals 56 million. So now you have, if the company didn't do anything, if she just operated normally, you know that it was very likely that they at least had 56 million. So you can already start to have some broad understanding of the numbers of the company. You know that it started with 195 million. You know that probably 25 to 30 million was used on Cedarvale. You know that it had 30 million worth of Bitcoin at the price of 60,000. So the total value of the assets at the emergence, including payables and everything included, it's around $262 million. Okay, from that's the baseline that you have. Now, to understand if the company lost money, you just have to figure the cash position and the BTC. Once you know that, you can remove the expenses, and basically the total value lost is around $60 million. Okay, that's the net cash that was lost. Now, if you want to look at the total cash flow, which I will speak as EBITDA, the company lost money. Okay, so it's wrong to say that the company is cash flow positive in a pure total cash flow or total EBITDA. Okay, but there is some nuances to this. We know that there was a payment at the emergence for Cedarvale. So if you remove that month, if you just look at the 5 preceding months, you could say that the company could be cash positive in the last 3 months, or even in the last month. You could also say that the company is operational cash flow positive. So when you talk about operational cash flow, that means day-to-day expenses, predicted expenses, sometimes does not include one-time expenses that Cedarvale could be included. And I remember in court that the judge asked how you have one operating site. Is it still cash flow positive? So you could have the lawyer say, yes, it's cash flow positive. He could be speaking in the previous month, in a previous month basis, which means that the Cedarvale initial costs are not in the equation, or he could be speaking just from an operational standpoint. Now, this is the things that you have to be careful. It could be seen as slightly manipulative, but it's used on finance. So it's something that I think I'm trying to bring here to contextualize. So once you have this in mind, you could say that the company is cash flow positive. And you also have to understand one thing. Every single month, if the financials are being reported as they were previously, the company could be cash flow positive in a given month. For example, when BTC was at 70,000. But now, if you adjust it for the current price, it could be also cash flow negative. So there is a lot of ways you could look at this data, and I just want people to have this in context. Now, you also heard basically on Spaces and on tweets, and that's one of the main reasons I wanted to also make this space, is that the company lost or spent $125 million. This is also, in my opinion, slightly manipulative, because if you, at the emergence, are including the Bitcoin and all the seeded money, why would you not discount that and net out the value right now from those 135 million? So basically, if you net that, the company lost currently with the non-financials, including the construction of Cedarvale, they lost around 50 million. So this is one of the things that I wanted to bring up. So besides this, let me just go over basically what I kind of pieced it together. So we know that the company had a liquidity provision. So the liquidity provision was basically a getaway card in case something happened with the listing process. This could be to basically liquidate the assets, something that the HUT did or failed to do. So initially, I think everyone here in the space, Simon, me, Tony, we thought that they had made no attempts at executing that liquidity provision.
Sorry, Ron Paul, just to get it right, it was the ability to cancel the HUT agreement. That's what if they didn't list by a certain date, then they could cancel the HUT agreement with a bunch of penalties.
Exactly, but correct me if I'm wrong. Those penalties also impacted Ionic Digital, right? They had to pay some millions to.
Yeah, HUT would crucify you if you cancel it. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, Celsius was kind of fucked because the official statement is that the auditor left the company in May. There was no public statement on this, and this basically kind of pulled the carpet from HUT and I suspect the board feet. So basically, the listing was effectively halted. So you couldn't do anything. Now, the board, according to them, notify HUT 8 that they wanted to execute the liquidity provision, so cancel the deal with HUT. After this, so on paper they are doing their fiduciary duty according to the plan. Okay. So from this, they basically come to a negotiation. They manage to lower the fees. They manage to remove the payments those payments that I mentioned, and Simons was mentioned, like 55 million in case that the deal was removed from HUD. So they made it much simpler and just decreased the fee. And from my understand, I haven't seen this, but there might be some future exclusivity for HUD to manage other sites. So this seems to be like a trade-off. Now, it's also interesting that if was Ionic bluffing when they notify of the liquidity provision, because I think, and Simon, you can intercede here, HUD will have received 55 million, I think even more than that. So that will be beneficial for them. So my question is, if HUD does not believe in the viability of the Celsius mining assets, wouldn't it be in their best interest to execute a liquidity provision? What do you think, Simon, of this? I will use you as a...
From my perspective, Hut8 gets paid whether we're profitable or not. They didn't tie their contract to our success. So when they were disclosing the Ionic deal within their listing document and their public files, this is just a cash grab for them. The issue is that we have uptime of about 60%. We have a dysfunctional board. We have a board that was put together in order to look after each other with zero mining experience. We have Hut8 that was put on the board to protect their own interests. The chairman was simply there because from my perspective, just speculation, he was the bribe, and the UCC just wanted their jobs.
But just
no
going back to
one's
that,
competent enough to run it. But you've got 60% uptime. You need to get to 90. You're talking about the most ruthless industry in terms of margins. And yeah, you can play around with capex, and yeah, you can play around with Bitcoin pricing. But you're talking about, as I've always said, a low margin business that needs to be like 95% uptime and highly efficient and competing with the best players out there. We got 60% uptime.
I understand that point, but do you realize that for HUD to make basically the fine that Celsius, that Ionic will pay, like 55 million, I think it's more, I think it's like 70 million. It will take like 5 years for them to get that.
Yeah, but they get the build out cost, which is like that 365. I can't remember the numbers because it's so long ago, but $365,000 per something or other. Then they get the 20 million per year, and they still get all the cancellation clauses, and that's not tied to results. And then the only thing they put that was tied to results was the clause that they reduced their management fee by $1 million with a cap of $6 million for every month that they don't meet their goal. So, you can't run a mining company this way. You have to have your own in-house team. You have to have efficiency. It's just not possible for Hut8 to make this much money. And for us to be...
But what you're saying, if you're saying that the Ionic Digital was not making a profit, they will never be cash positive, never. So my issue is this, that when you are speaking about the uptime, as I said before, as many people spoken before, the uptime is not the right metric to use on the way that the Midland sites are established. As I understand, they mine and they have contracts that are based on power demand. So
I mean, the cartelment, so the upside is something to do with them cartelling. I mean, that could be the case. We don't know.
It has to be. It has to be. Okay. So without that, they will have not be cash flow positive in the months on the bankruptcy, the last months, and the numbers would look really awful today if that was true. You're saying so. They have to be playing demand play here. And the minute you do that, that's the only way that you can reach the current liquidity values. So thanks for addressing that. That's something I want to address. And also one of the things that I think I'm glad that you brought up is the notion of having an in-house team. There are many pros to having an in-house team, but there is also currently the modern day that servers are done. I think everyone that here is over 30 years old. You probably remember when cable companies, Apple, and other companies provided their own in-house service. Nowadays, everything is contract based. So you give it to another company, you pitch companies against each other to provide that service. You gain flexibility because you can terminate the contract, and okay, there are provisions in this case for Hut 8, and that's something that is worth considering. But I'm saying that on itself, the model to have most of your non-specialized work to be contractualized is a known, a modern concept. So on itself, the concept is not wrong. The issue here is if the company is entirely dependent on Hut 8, and if, so for example, they cancel the deal, will the sites go down? Do we have at least a small IT team that can respond to that, to those issues? I think that's more of the question. But it's worth considering. Okay, that's something that maybe the company, if they had more transparency, they should try to to have that idea promoted and see if it's viable. Just speaking from an IT concept, having third parties do the contract work makes sense.
Yeah, well, as long as the first thing to resolve is you need a good actor board. Like, you've got a bunch of people that have no experience in Bitcoin mining. You've got a massive overhead. You've got grifters. You've got a contract that is looking out for the best interest of their own company. And you're in one of the most ruthless businesses where you have to be ultra efficient. This is not a board you can trust, and we're just burning money. So we just need to get rid of the board as fast as possible. And if you want to look, this is from my perspective. You can look into this company again and start looking at that. But we had to accept this plan because the price of Bitcoin was going up, and if we got over 100% whole, then they would have been able to sell the Bitcoin, keep all the assets, and the upside would have gone somewhere else. We got ourselves out of that. So the bribe was we have to invest 225 million into the company. And we had all of our fights to get a good board were rejected through corruption because Whiting case, the UCC, had the whole thing buttoned up and decided exactly what this is going to look like. And they managed to take it away from Nova Wolf and TerraWolf and hand it over to Hut 8 and the whole Fahrenheit thing. Okay, so we had to accept that because we had to get out of bankruptcy. But okay, we managed to keep the Bitcoin, we managed to keep the ETH, and we got out before it was 100% whole, so we didn't get shafted. Now we've got the corrupt board with a company that has underdelivered upon every promise, with another public company that has massive competing interests and is disclosing how much money they're making out of us, without an auditor, and somebody else that says, "Hey, I'll help you get some liquidity, liquidate, overthrow the board, get a shareholder meeting." So let's get on with that. That's from my perspective. This existing board are not good actors. They're there because they're incompetent people that believe that they can do something with this company, and they haven't proven themselves. They could have proven themselves by now. They could have delivered upon some of their promise, or at least they could have communicated. We still got White and Case running the damn show. It wasn't Scott, Tom, or any of the board members answering my questions in the court, it was bloody Greg Pesh. Like, White and Case are just rinsing this whole thing, and so now the next step is just to get rid of the grifters, and put these hands in the put these assets in the right hands, or overthrow the board and have a decent board. But this current board won't. They're holding on. They drafted all the contracts to make sure we couldn't overthrow them. And so my focus is just, let's get 25%. And once we got 25%, we can call the shareholder meeting. But screw this board.
Tell me this. With 2 shareholders who are creditors in the board, so they basically have 7 seats. I think 1 is not filled.
Yeah, but they believe in themselves. They believe in themselves with no experience. They didn't. If they were rational thinking people, they would have stepped aside and they would have taken. I introduced a Class A team, people that have built the very first ASICs in the world, people that have been involved in this industry in China and US for over a decade, but they chose themselves and hate over that because they think for some reason they're deluded. They think that they're the team to do this, and they're not willing to put in a decent team.
Simon, you might be right, but you know that the board cannot speak for itself.
It can speak for itself, but it's taken White and Case's culture of saying, don't say anything because shareholders, like every public company speaking with their shareholders. Ionic's not. Tony had to write a letter just to get them to release a press release, and then they did a hostage video where they're reading out White and Case's script.
Come on, man.
We haven't even heard Thomas and Scott.
Simon, you know why that has to be like a hostage video. Like,
yeah, of course, that's fine.
He gets sued, man. So
yeah, okay, I think fine. Read the script, but look, Tom and Scott got us in this mess. Face your shareholders. They're being pussies, quite frankly.
Tell me this, man. Tell me this. If there were 2 other additional shareholders, creditors with the community support, plus Michael from Figure, don't you basically have control over the board? So it doesn't matter if Manny is the chairman. It doesn't matter what Elizabeth Lapuma is doing. As long as you have 4 creditors, you can guarantee that the interests are being preserved. As far as
why the hell do you need 11 expensive grifters on the board? Like, you just need a few people sorting this shit out. Hand it over to Litigation Oversight Committee. They've already done a good job at making sure they're profitable. Or put Mike's team in, but you don't need a bunch of corrupt people that are just there to maximize their next board position and try and just grift some money out. They're just a bunch of they're professional board members.
Once you have 4 creditors plus Michael from Figure, you can do everything you want. You can raise the issue to the board, so and eventually
let's get the 25%. Let's follow Mike's plan and let's get this shit over with.
But the problem with Mike's plan is, I think first we are rushing this. Basically,
there's no rush here. We're burning cash. Every month is less money that we're going to get.
Yeah, but the moment you are about to turn Cedarvale,
Cedarvale's a decent asset. Like, there's a bunch of, like, we're in the right time at the right place. There's a bunch of Bitcoin miners and AI providers that need that. It's a decent asset. It's worth money. Let's put it in somebody's hands that can actually use it. Let's put it in somebody's hands that can actually utilize it, not a bunch of grifters that are just going to burn money trying to turn an asset because they got 0 experience and they haven't proven themselves so far.
Financially, at least from the current data, I think, as I said it before, if they were over 200 million, I think the company has still full control of its destiny. What I do agree is that it makes sense to reinforce the shareholders' power in the company. And I do prefer, like, a majority of creditors. I would like still to have the other 2 guys there just to safeguard. it's better to have a more balanced power. The other issue that probably scares me a little bit with this rush, and I will open to speak to other creditors as well, is that once you do this, if it fails, this will probably be taken to court. You will probably take HUT to court. This will take a bunch of time. This will probably have increased fees for everyone. So I think a real attempt of a deal with the board should be attempted. I don't think just basically saying the board, everyone at the board is fucking everything up. Let's just clean the slate. I think that's a wholesale takeover. You don't have the entire context. We just have things coming out as piecemeal. And as I think you also, at that point when the company was effectively trying to list, you do have requirements that do not allow you to disclose or make a bunch of public statements. So you have to put everything in context. So that's my point, that I'm a little bit scared to just go with some guides. Okay, if you, for credits to understand, Figure, Simon, at some point they also made extremely predatory deals in the bankruptcy process. So
what do you mean? My deal was give everyone everything for free. It was an orderly wind down and give everyone with no fees. How's that a predatory deal?
What stage of the deal are you talking? The first deal that you put forward was 20% of performance plus 2% of the total assets under management.
That was under a complete reorg structure of giving equity in the company, building the whole business out.
Sure. But then the other.
But I'm nothing to do with this. Ron Paul, I'm nothing to do with this. I don't want a board seat.
I know, but I'm just what I want to mention is the Novel Wolf.
But no, my second deal, just so you know,
it was good.
Was published was to give everyone their assets for free, and it was the best deal by far. And that wasn't selected because it didn't involve giving UCC. It was too cheap for UCC, and White and Case didn't make enough money from it. And that's why.
Yeah, but the deal about Novel Wolf also went similar to your first deal. Basically, they got a management fee, which.
But we're in the same deal now with Bricks. Bricks have the Figure are putting together a proposal of how we can get our liquidity and how we can liquidate this shit and still have an option if for any miraculous reason there's a decent enough board to try and turn this company into something. But no, remember, we were promised an orderly wind down, and because the price of Bitcoin went up, they said, no, in order to get your orderly wind down, you need to add 225 million to this company and accept this grifter board. And we had to persuade the judge that it was a good deal, because otherwise we were going to end up with no assets, and then they would have just sold the Bitcoin and bought us out, and they would have done an FTX on us. So now we're trying to get the orderly wind down that everyone actually wanted. And the existing board, they just want to prove that they can fulfill their vision, which they got zero competence and zero track record of being able to fulfill. And they failed at all the first hurdles. And the worst thing is they just won't communicate. And there's no excuse for not communicating. You can read the script and do the hostage video, but it's a public reporting company that's currently a private company. And the public companies have, their teams come up on the spaces all the time.
And
but they're scared shitless because they're corrupt and they're incompetent and they've got nothing good to say.
That's the approach you have to make, is say that the company or the board failed on that point. That's why they are, the reason that they are releasing.
I've been telling them to speak. I've been telling them to speak to shareholders or creditors for 2.5 years. They're pussies. They won't speak.
So let's do a quick rehash for everyone who joined in a little bit later. So I think we have a beautiful base to form our discussion and maybe open up the space in a minute. The last 30 minutes, Celsius fact numbers took the time to explain what are the numbers that were provided by the court and Ionic Digital at this moment. He took all the numbers and made a calculation about it, and his conclusion was that there is an option, a possibility that they are cash positive at this moment. Simon points out that he expresses his concerns about the board, and this is also shared by Celsius fact numbers, if I understood correctly. Now it is the question, what are we going to do as creditors? Are we going to make a deal with the board, or are we pushing for to dissolve this company and let the court decide to redistribute the assets over all the creditors? I hope I made a good summary.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. The court doesn't have jurisdiction, so the court can't do shit. Tony and I tested that. We can get White and Kate or Greg Pesh to come and answer questions incorrectly, but the judge doesn't have jurisdiction. We've received the asset, Ionic Digital. We have the shares. They fulfilled the plan. So that asset is outside of the bankruptcy process. We have three assets. We got the plan administrator, and just tying up the final parts of the bankruptcy. We got the litigation oversight committee, and we got Ionic Digital. And Ionic Digital, the promise in the plan was just to deliver the shares. So they've delivered the shares. So if you're now in a shareholder process, if you want to, and the only process that we have is start by getting 25%. Mike started that process. And then I wanted to put a hedge there so that we don't have to just go to Mike to get the 25%, whatever happens. We've got 25%. And with that 25%, we can then, decide what to do. But primarily, we're working with Mike, Tony, who are willing to do the work. Because at this stage, I'm willing to support the process, but I'm not willing to do the work myself because I've already known you just burn money and they just spend more of money and then everyone's worse off. But Mike's willing to have a crack at it. So we can only do that via a shareholder vote. It's not part of the bankruptcy process. We can send letters and try and put pressure on, but the judge doesn't have jurisdiction.
I think no one is advocating that. I think the issue here is what are you going to move with the board vote? I would prefer.
Oh, I don't have a vote. We just need to be able to communicate with 25%. And then once you've got 25%, the shareholders will have to make their own votes. We can't vote for them unless we end up buying their shares.
But you have to decide what is going to be in the ballots.
Yeah, all we need is 25% by email so that we can say, right, we have 25%, and then we can go through the formal process. But the formal process only happens when people actually vote their shares.
Yeah, I'm going to open the space. I just want to end with this comment that the minute that you have this vote, a lot of things will happen. Like if you don't have the right people, if you have people that are inclined to liquidate the company, imagine that BTC goes back to 50,000, the company will be even more cash flow negative. So if you just wanted to liquidate the assets, and if you had secondary motives behind, so imagine that you had deals with other sites or other companies that will be very happy to have those assets liquidated. The moment that you have a depreciation on BTC, you can basically argue from inside the company, from a shareholder board that you elected, that the company is not cash flow positive and there is no way to make it back. I'm just saying this because if the price if you go back and look at the numbers, calculate everything, if BTC was a 70K, the company would have just lost the construction value. Okay, if you run all the numbers I posted in a thread, the missing value is 90 million, and if basically BTC goes back to 70K, those 19 million come back. So that's, I just want to understand that once you do this, once you do the shareholder vote, the board is there, and it will be very difficult to then remove other people. So imagine that the people that come to the board have a certain understanding. If the shareholders disagree, I can guarantee you that no longer will you be able to, in my understanding, put a motion with 25% of the vote. And that's my issue, that there's opportunity here if people don't come with the best intentions, the shareholders will have no power to roll it back. If you want to put some conditions on what is going to come on the shareholder vote, go ahead. But I think it's
no one can vote on behalf of shareholders.
no. What
all you can do is call a shareholder meeting, and then the board, you either overthrow the board if you can, or you persuade the direction, and then people would have to vote. But the most important thing is to be able to say to Ionic, we have 25% here, that we can now call the meeting and push forward. Nothing happens unless shareholders actually vote on the decisions that require shareholder vote.
But you're going to call a meeting for what? To elect you to report the board, correct?
At the moment, to follow Mike's plan, and Mike's put together a liquidation plan. And but if we decide that that's not the direction everyone wants to take it, at least we still got 25% and can say, let's do this a different direction or something like that. But at the moment, Mike could, in theory, put together a liquidation plan. Everybody could have shares via an ATS in a private company, and you could pay a Bitcoin dividend to everybody rather than allow the company to sell the Bitcoin, and then just start auctioning off the assets. Or he's also got another plan to do a Dutch auction, if there's a company that people want to continue that will wash out the shareholders. So he's covered a pretty decent plan, and I think all energy should go behind that. But I think the most important thing is that if this needs to go in a different direction, we as shareholders are able to call that vote again and still have the 25%, not say, oh, Mike, can you take us in this direction now?
Yeah, basically what I'm just saying is that with 2 extra shareholders credits and his partner from Figure, you don't need to replace the chairman of the board. You have everything, and you achieve everything that you are.
Yeah, the chairman, from my perspective, is the corrupt actor. He's the one that engineered all the corruption. So you don't want. I personally don't believe you want that chairman. He's a complete bad actor.
Yeah, but the reason I'm telling that, if you put 4 people there, we have a majority that's aligned with creditors. He's just a puppet, and he has to bring board mandates and motions to the floor, and they have to vote. So in the end, like, you are basically putting the power on the board to kick him out. Okay, you don't need to actively put a SHAR meeting to remove them. You can just elect the people to then do a meeting to remove them. I think that's at least more easy to. It's less hostile in my view. But with that, Rob, let's open the floor for people to do some questions. Go ahead, constructive criticism, try to behave.
Yeah.
That's it.
Sounds like a good idea, and looks like we have different outcomes, and we can make a discussion about these outcomes. In the end, it is important that we as strategists are trying to make a decision. Otherwise, if we keep it in limbo as stated by both CelsiusFacts Numbers and Simon Dixon, is it can cost money, and all the money that is spent is less profit for us as shareholders, or maybe in a dissolvent of the company in the end that maybe can get back distributed to us. Tony, Alexander, welcome in the space. I will first give the mic to Tony, and then we can go to Alexander.
Well, first and foremost, Manny I do is not going to remain under any circumstances. Manny is most likely going to end up in jail. The stuff that happened is a DOJ type of investigation.
Sorry, Tony, to be clear, yeah, Manny's not Manny, the Earn Ad Hoc guy.
Manny I do, the chairman of the board. So the thought that he's going to remain, that's not going to happen, right? There's no scenario where that happens. I don't think you're really understanding what the proxy vote even is. In the proxy vote, you're going to have things that you can vote on, essentially, right? The things that everyone's going to be voting on is to remove Scott, to remove Tom, to remove Manny, to remove Elizabeth, to remove the Playboy guy, to remove the Spirit Airlines guy, and I don't know who else is left on the board, but to remove them as well. And then that's going to be one of the votes. And then the additional vote is to be their replacements. Who's going to replace them? You don't need 9 members on the board. You don't need 7. I mean, you probably don't even need 5, honestly. This is not a real company. Celsius Mining was never a real company. Alex Mashinsky took $1 billion of creditors' funds. He hired 4 guys, I forgot what their names are, but I'm sure I could find them, and told them, build a Bitcoin mining company. He paid like 4x for the miners. He didn't have a place to plug them in. He went to all the Bitcoin mining companies and he said, I will give you X amount of millions of dollars in investment in your company, which you need to grow. In return, you're going to host my machines and you're going to do it at, X cost, right? The ones that agreed to those terms went bankrupt, right? The only reason Core Scientific went bankrupt is because of Celsius. Same with Rhodium now. They're gone bankrupt. That investment's going to go to zero. All the companies that Mashinsky partnered with have gone bankrupt. And majority of the time is because of him. He's the baron of bankruptcy, pretty much. He does this everywhere he goes. He destroys whatever was there. So this is not a real company. We have assets. There are
Tony,
some assets.
let me just
just relax.
let's speak together. So you're saying that Midlands is not the site.
You have no idea what you're talking about. You have no idea.
Let Tony finish his whole preamble, and then we can do it back and forth.
You have no idea what you're talking about, right? We have old generation miners right now. Most of them are hosted. 10,000 have been plugged into Ionic. Great, fantastic. Those are old miners. The notion that the Bitcoin price is going to go up, and if the company is barely profitable or not profitable, once the price goes up, is going to become profitable. It doesn't work that way. I'm an investor in Bitcoin mining companies. You grow or you die. You either grow exponentially or you die exponentially. That's how this business works. Let's just say they plug in all their miners and Bitcoin goes to 100,000, 150,000, 200,000, whatever. When we were in bankruptcy, the global hash rate was in the 200s. Now it's at 650 today, right? So that, if you just look at it, that's basically 2 halvings right there, plus the actual halving that just occurred. So every time the hash rate goes up, the difficulty goes up, which in turn means you're mining less Bitcoin. And the only way you can not mine less Bitcoin or even mine the same amount of Bitcoin is if your hash rate is going up exponentially. When Bitcoin goes up, there's going to be more companies like Mashinsky did that want to get into mining because they're going to say, holy shit, there's a lot of money to be had here. And what ends up happening is you grow and you grow and you grow and you spend hundreds of millions of dollars just to remain in the same spot that you were in. This is the most cutthroat industry in the world. The best operators are diluting their shareholders to shit just so they can maintain where they're at and to grow and to follow the hash rate. Do you think Scott and Tom can do this? Do you think Manny I do can do this? Do you think Elizabeth LaPuma from her WeWork days can do this? Do you think a company with no employees can do this? Is that what you think? You think it's going to get better as the price of Bitcoin goes up. No, it's going to get harder as the price of Bitcoin goes up. So we're already in over our heads. It's about to get harder. We're going to lose more and more and more money as this thing goes on. So just cut bait. This is not a viable business. These are not people that can run this business. There are plenty of operators that can run this business. None of them work for Ionic. None of them will work for Ionic, because why would they?
So, Tony, if I understand correctly, dissolve the company, or are you willing to push for a better board and an in-house team?
This company needs to be sold and liquidated and wound down, which is what we voted for. No one's going to fix this. You're not going to find a superhero come in and save the day. It's not that kind of business.
That was very clear from
your point. So you're saying that the Midland site is not cash flow positive. Are you saying that it makes no money?
No, they're losing money
before
they pay
the Midland
Asher.
site is losing money. Is that your point?
Before they pay Asher $15 million a year now, they are losing money.
They are not. They were not.
They are.
They were not.
They are.
Sorry, they were cash flow positive for
no.
In what metric are you speaking?
Factoring in the appreciation of Bitcoin. You're not factoring any of the equipment. You're not factoring any of the stuff that they would have to immediately replace, like last year. Forget about now. Who's going to pay who's going to pay $100, $200 million to replace the entire mining fleet?
Well,
you got that kind of cash?
Well, one thing is very clear, especially for people who are more into knowledge of this space. We see some more hurdles that is maybe not provided by us, by the board. It's very important. It would be very important normally that the board informs their shareholders, so we have a better understanding of the company. The point that CelsiusFacts Numbers is trying to make is the only thing that we can see right now are the numbers that are provided to us. With these numbers, I come to the conclusion A, B, and C. And Tony is saying, well, watch out for that, because I don't believe these numbers. I even don't think they are right and true. And the most important point I think Tony is trying to make, this company, I want his personal opinion, I want this company to be dissolved as soon as possible. Alexander, what do you want to provide?
Hold on, let me say this. If you had a time machine.
Oh, sorry, didn't mean to do that. Try again, Tony, and try to make the last statement.
So if you had a time machine and you're able to fast forward the build out of Cedarvale, and all 4 buildings, all 4 structures were fully built out, whatever, right? Everything's running. You just got to put the machines in. You would still need $150, $200 million to replace 100,000 mining rigs that are completely obsolete right now. How are you going to pay for that? With what cash?
First, we had 200 million of cash, and there are many ways to pay.
You spend all the money on that.
Let me just put this in perspective. One of the things that Hasher, and it's normal in the business, is that you get the minings for free, you rent them, and they pay from themselves. So there's a way that you can scale. If you have,
hold on.
If you have,
those coupons.
Let me finish.
No, because you don't know what you're talking about. Those coupons that they kept talking about during the
bankruptcy. It's not the coupons.
Those are garbage. Those aren't. They hand those out to people. That's not a real asset. They kept talking about it like an asset. It's not an asset. Those coupons are nothing. They want you.
You are speaking about the coupons. I'm speaking about the matter which you buy the rig. So you can buy.
How would you buy those rigs?
So you can buy them straight away, as you are saying, cost 200 million, or you can have a more flexible deal. You get the miner, the revenue that's coming from the miner tries to pay itself. So that's one of the points that the Asher was speaking about, the models that he was thinking. I'm not saying it's not viable. I'm not saying it's viable. I'm saying it's currently being used, and it's a way that you can scale up without having a straight initial cost. So there is no way you can go around it. That's a viable strategy that you can go around refreshing your fleet without having the entire or spending the entire 200 million. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, well, ask NIDIG what happened when they had that deal with Iron. Ask them.
Yeah, I think Tony, it was. I think you put it very well, especially in the beginning. I followed you loud and clear about your knowledge about how this is not viable. I think this is the point from your perspective. The rest is detail that we can go into in a later moment if you like in the discussion. We do have two other people on stage. Crypto Knife, welcome. Alexander, I want to give you the mic, and let's see what your point of perspective is so we can get a little bit of balance.
Thanks, Rob, for having me. So first of all, Simon, I would have a personal question to you regarding your board position. Is it true that you actually did not want to be part of the board because as a board member you could not sell your Ionic shares on the first day? Or is this just a rumor?
No, I stepped down because I had to have a gag order and they wanted me to come off social media and go dark. And then they renegotiated the terms. And when I realized I had to go dark, I just didn't reply. That's it.
Okay, sorry.
Alexander, let me just. I was the one that put that rumor. So let me just give context. So I made a tweet of what the lawyer in court said, and that was a jab at Simon, but I thought it was instinct. So Simon's position is that he didn't want to be on the board or as a board observer because of the gag order, while the lawyer for White & Case said it was because Simon did not agree with the trading policy, which is hold the shares. That's the reason I put that tweet. It's a straight quote from him. And it's, Simon, it was about the board or being a board observer. I did not understand.
Board observer. Yeah, I never wanted to get a board seat because I would refuse to be board of a US company. And board observer, it became really clear, look, I'm a very outspoken person. I wouldn't have been good for the company. I wouldn't have been able to uphold the culture that White & Case wanted to create, which is zero communication with shareholders. I would have been toxic.
I hear you. So, Simon, what you're saying, even with your board observer role, you were forced to be not able to sell your shares, or at least a part of your shares. Okay, I understand this, and with your...
I can't even remember terms around that. But yeah, I believe that there was a lock-in period. It's not an issue for me because I was going to keep these shares anyway.
I think with your TradFi history, it definitely would be a deal breaker. But again, my 2 cents on...
Well, no, I was gonna hold these shares. I had no intention of selling them. And as I said, I got a group of people where we're all taking delivery, and we were looking to support the company. That's why I introduced them to a competent board. And then at some point, it became very apparent that these people are not interested in the best deal. They're just interested in the best deal for White & Case, Scott, Tom, and Hut A.
Simon, I hear you, and again, for you, with being probably the largest shareholder when it comes to retail, I understand your stance up there. So we definitely should push for a board meeting. This is my understanding, or this is at least my opinion, because currently we have one building ready. So I think seeing that progress, we definitely can assume that the other 3 buildings, which are still open, will not be up and running by the end of the year, right? So is there even a plan to have one more site running by the end of the year?
Yes, Alexander, what was said in court is this, that the current deal with HUT is to have all the remaining sites finished by December 17. Okay? If they don't have the buildings finished, they pay us a fee. They pay us a couple of millions because they failed to meet the deadline. So, and by the way, I'm pretty sure all other buildings are already being constructed. Only the first one is fully finished. and fully.
Ron, I hear you there, but it means being finished. Okay, the physical building is standing, but actually it's not producing any hash power. Okay, because that's also then worthless. So again,
it's producing the first building is being produced as far
I'm
as
not talking about the first building. I'm talking about the other three buildings, and it's a difference to build up or to to construct a building and having it empty
everything.
instead
it's
of having
and power. So
on the 17th of December.
Yeah, so for December is to have everything ready to be plugged on those sites. That's my understanding. That's what was said in court.
So 2 months and 17 days. I'm not seeing this. Okay, definitely I'm not seeing
but
this.
do you remember that as you and me, we probably are not there, but from my understanding is that some time ago
they've made that big promise.
Started.
They've said they're going to have everything up and running by the end of this year. We'll be disappointed and we'll watch and they'll fail.
So because again, otherwise, what we know is, of course, that they already spend our cash. But Simon, what you also said always, okay, you want to save in Bitcoin, right? And we also know, I mean, it's pushed back now, the trial for Mashinsky. But again, when Bitcoin really rallies to new all-time highs, and then they can say, oh, you know what, because I'm just looking at these Earnhardt
now mining's different. Mining adjusts as Bitcoin goes up. It's not like the difficulty adjusts every 2 weeks. I've been involved in this industry since 2013. Tony's been an investor in all the major companies in this industry now. Like we know how this industry works, and Ionic has not suddenly got some magic formula that is completely different. In fact, it is miles away from the competency of all the other people that they're competing with right now.
I hear you.
Let's, Alexander, are we finished or let's with Kryptonite? I disagree with what Simon said. I think the numbers speak otherwise.
It must be their magic board and their magic equipment and their magic innovation.
I think it's Midland. I think it's really Midland, and it's the reason that you don't see the rigs being over 60%. By the way, the entire time on the bankruptcy court, they were never over 60%. They were more or less around that number. So that is not an issue. That's a trend. Okay, that's the behavior of how Midland is set up. Alexander, are you finished, or can we pass to Kryptonite?
I'm done.
Kryptonite, go ahead.
Oh, come on, Alexander. You could give us a little more. Listen, I'm all for having a board vote. That's my opinion. I feel like if a company is doing well, then there's no reason for them not to come out and be like, hey, we're doing well. This is our plan. This is what we're doing. To not say anything for months is just ridiculous. And as far as numbers, I mean, when you use the word speculation, we don't know if the numbers are accurate, right? Because nobody really knows. And I think the majority of people just want to cut ties and get out, in my opinion.
Kryptonite, it's also like when you look at, okay, in average, they're saving 200 Bitcoins. Okay, they lost, I'm just looking at the numbers, 68,000. It would take us more than 28 years to acquire this Bitcoin back. No way that this happens.
You got to think of what Tony said. Your ability to raise finance is the success of the company. Is this a board that you'd invest into? They've got to immediately go out there and raise 200 million of finance just to keep up. And they've got to have a better story than Riot, than Marathon, than MicroStrategy, than Bitcoin, than the Bitcoin ETF. Like, they've got to have a better story.
They don't, Simon. We don't have to discuss that. They don't. I'm just saying, again, I'm also saying, looking at this and I'm seeing total petition date liabilities is 5,137 million stuff. Again, I'm also talking about the fact, what do we have now? 1,800 Bitcoin or whatever. Even when Bitcoin goes to new all-time highs, what will it have for an effect on the trial with Mashinsky, right? Because I do not want that he comes out.
No connection to Mashinsky. It's got nothing to do with it. This is Ionic. It's an independent company.
Yeah, I understand, but on the other side, still Mashinsky would use it and say, look, we actually...
Mashinsky's got nothing to do with this.
Okay.
So Celsius fact numbers, also correct me if I make this miss in my statement here, but I do listen carefully to you guys, and I think we all agree, and I also noticed a lot of reactions from the members here in space who are listening. The board, we are not happy about. There needs to be done about the board. And now we are talking about details, how we can do that, and who needs to get rid and why it's not profitable, or yes, it is profitable. But I think the step forward is, as a decision we need to make as shareholders, how do we change the board, and what options are we going to create as creditors to make that a reality?
So I think Simon already underlined this. There are two options. One, you force a shareholder vote, or you try to have a deal with a company, like any public company. Now, that's what was said in court by White and Case. I believe trying to make a real deal, I think I respect Mike, and I really want Ionic and Figure to be together, or at least try to inherit the community and maybe some of the assets. But I think for both companies it's too early, and I think there is a path for a deal. Like I posted here on the Nest, this is not what Simon and Tony is proposing, but it basically achieved the same thing. It's basically just replacing two board members and having another board member from Ionic into Figure. The reason I say this is that
I already told you that's not going to happen. Manny I do is not going to remain on the board.
I don't care about the chairman of the board. I'm saying that.
Okay, but the rest of them are not going to remain, because those are the ones that we're going to sue.
Like one of the issues, Tony, when you try to run for a board, you have to be impartial. You have to look at both perspectives. The reason that you just say straight up liquidation and sell those assets, and I think the way you are putting forward is not the right thing that a real board member should do.
Listen, when you get your proxy vote your shares against it. It's very simple. You don't like it, then just vote against it.
No, I'm not talking about the shares or about the vote. I'm speaking as a candidate. The way you are having a predefined position is against what a normal board member will have to. You have to be impartial. You have to follow what is best for the company. And I think the way you approach this is extremely biased. I think the way that you say that the company lost 35 million is somewhat manipulative, because when you net out the Bitcoin, that's not true. And that actually reminds me of our previous CEO, of Alex Mashinsky, as he was saying, we have 2 billion in funds to prevent against downturn, and it was all sell. And you basically are saying that, we had 150% of 150 million that we used, and that's actually.
So I said they spent.
Yeah, but why will you not add?
Do you understand spent?
I understand that, but do you understand that saying exactly that without saying the net?
Are you saying they did not spend? Are you saying they did not spend that money? Is that the hill you want to die on?
I'm saying the right thing to say. If you came from a unbiased, just straight of focus on the facts, you will have said that they spent 150 million or 130 million of the cash they held, but netted out the BTC that mine, they just lost in liquid around 50 million. And from that, you will say that from this 50 million also includes the construction of the Cedarvale, which would be always a negative.
26 million on Cedarvale was prepaid during the bankruptcy.
Sorry?
26 million of that Cedarvale was prepaid during the bankruptcy.
So before we go back in the
details, are you sure that was not an emergence? Are you sure that was not an emergence? Go ahead, Tony.
One moment. Before we go back in the details, if it's okay for you guys, let's do a little bit step back because you are talking about the board and the option to remove the current board. And I hear both sides of the argument that we need to change the board, but there are different options on how to do it. Is it possible that we can go back to that instead of the details, because the details will come later on?
Tony, go ahead. Are there more than one option?
Hold on, I'm not sure I follow. What do you mean by more than one option?
So
The proxy vote is to remove the board.
Yeah,
exactly.
they're not going to cooperate in changing the board. They've already made sure they're protecting what their own self-interest. There's no cooperation with them.
And to overcome that, we need 25% of the creditors' votes to push them in that direction. Am I clear in that? Is that correct?
Yeah, Mike Cagney is willing to make the investment to push forward that in a very professional way and see if it works. So we're getting the 25%. Then Mike's got a plan, and then if Mike's plan doesn't work out the way we want it, then we can come back to another way of trying to overthrow the board and liquidate.
Yeah, so we have a plan of Mike, and I see we also have a plan that is called shareholders first. But the outcome of overthrowing the board is a little bit different.
So basically what I'm saying here is to make an actual proposal or deal with a public company that if it is refused, you then can do what Simon and Tony are doing. So what I just...
who's going to put the money in to run that process?
I think it's also in the best interest of Mike to do something less hostile, because
Mike will only do something if it means that he ends up with the shares on his ATS, because that's his stated goal.
Exactly, and nothing prevents for how if you want
to be the investment bank and run a competitive auction and go out to all the companies and try and get them engaged in the process. That's an expensive process.
Simon, let me just finish and say this. So if you have the majority of the board and you have Michael Abate there, you can put a motion forward for the board to vote. Doesn't even has to come to the shareholders to look at listing on Figure. Okay, it's very simple. So my issue, what I'm trying to say here is that there is no, like Mike said, that the deal that he proposed to Ionic Digital will be refused. And there are reasons because they were refused, because they basically is going to remove the chairman of the board, forced a CEO, which I don't think it's a board vote, it's part of the proposal. So I'm basically just saying, put a real deal that could be accepted just by inputting two new creditors. You have the majority of the votes, two creditors plus Mike Abate from the company. You have the majority, and then you can do whatever you want. And the reason I'm trying to say that if you attempt to do first a real deal, that the purpose is not really the chairman of the board or the other board members, and you just focus on increasing the shareholder power, which I think everyone here admits that they fail the fiduciary duty in terms of governance, about transparency. I think there is a legitimate way that they should accept it as it is. At least the way I posted here, it should at least be acceptable. If they refuse, then you can go at it whatever you want. But I think that is the less conflictual, and it also puts the ball on their side. And if they refuse to play ball, you get the upper hand when things eventually probably move to court, because I think hot deal will probably...
Let me make sure I understand it correctly. So it's you're saying if Mike says the conditions of listing on our ATS is that we put two creditors on the board, is that what you're asking Mike to do?
I'm just saying, put a deal to have Mike Abate into the board two creditors, to have a majority of creditors, and then establish a set of mandates to study the secondary listing, because I can tell and you come from this side, there are issues with secondary listings. There are a bunch of requirements that have to be resolved.
There's massive issues, but this is just a mechanism for liquidating.
Exactly. But the minute you are forcing the secondary listing as a deal, that's a no deal, because you are forcing the board to make a position without probably looking at the issues that a secondary listing can have. So that's why I prefer to first kind of infiltrate the board to make sure that creditors are there as the majority, that you have someone representing figure, and from there out you can figure everything out. There is no need for conflicts. There's no need to immediately liquidate the company or have talks about it. You don't need to immediately break out with huts. Okay, that for me is the surest way for shareholders to have no downside. Okay.
Yeah, I think Mike Cagney's already tried that 5 times, isn't it, Tony? I think he's already put together 5, 6, 7, 8 proposals, and he'll put together another one, and they'll reject it.
Yeah, why do we keep wasting money? Liquidating.
I'm not sure
so if you ever had, like, you ever get hurt, you put a Band-Aid on it, right? It gets a scab. Every time you rip the Band-Aid off, you're starting from scratch. Right? You put a new Band-Aid on, you wait for it to get dry, you take the new Band-Aid off, next thing you know, you ripped off the scab again. And then you're starting over and over and over. We're just spinning in circles. Rip off the Band-Aid, liquidate this donkey, and let's move on.
Tony, is you have been basically asking for liquidation since day one, right?
There has been 1,000 years of banks going bankrupt, and in every single circumstance, liquidating and distributing whatever is left is the best outcome. Celsius was a bank.
You don't believe those words.
You're saying what I just said I don't believe?
I think if we would have liquidated Celsius in the beginning instead of dragging out, people would have been a lot happier and probably would have gotten more money.
Dude, they had the wind down. They had the wind down deal in March of 2023. At the time, they spent like 50, 60 million in legal fees, and then they were asking for like 50 million for the private mining company, right? Let's just add another 50 to it for everything else. You're looking at 150 million spent, and we get out when Bitcoin is at like 20K. But instead, we got out a year late. We got out a year later. They spent like 50 million on legal fees, another 250 on Ionic. So we're out $500 million when we could have been out with 150 million, let's say. And Bitcoin doubled in that span. Who won by this scenario? Who won?
The lawyers. And we gave them in December 2022, I think it was, a free orderly wind down, but they had another plan. They wanted to spend more money. It was too cheap.
The brick guys, the White and Case, during the auction, they told them to change your deal from a wind down to something similar to Nova Wolf. Why? Because they want to make money. The attorneys want to make money. The lawyers want to make money. The bankruptcy professionals want to make money. The UCC members want to make money. Look at the UCC, right? Scott Tom got board seats. What's his name? Robinson. He got a LOC seat. The other guy that was, what's his name? The one that wasn't actually a representative for the company. You remember his name, Simon?
Keith guy?
Keith Noyes. He was supposed to be on the LOC until Cheryl Cornell ruined their plans. They were paying out everybody. Everyone, they were paying them. Like, what does that tell you?
I think, but Tony, you are including all the money spent on the mining company? Is that it? It's your view? We are losing money because Mashinsky spent X amount, is that it?
No. We're not losing money because Mashinsky spent. All right? Mashinsky already spent on these machines. We have to re-spend that amount just to be a viable business moving forward. Forget about what it is today. Forget about building out Cedarvale. Just to be a viable business with actual miners that aren't losing money, we'd have to spend like another $200 million.
And that's to be really uncompetitive with the ultra efficient miners out there right now.
That's to survive. I'm not talking about thriving, because to thrive, you have to grow exponentially in Bitcoin mining. I'm talking about to survive.
The only issue I have is that you can implement a master strategy into Ionic. There is nothing preventing like that. We have the assets, so
okay. Who's going
to
to do that? Who's going to do this master strategy that no other Bitcoin mining company has been able to implement?
I'm pretty sure Mara is doing that, right?
Yeah. Look, have you seen Mara's share price lately? Have you seen how many shares they've diluted the last year?
That's the issue with Mara. But actually, you know
Okay,
what's
well,
very
who's going to
surprising?
do better?
You know what's surprising?
Mara's the biggest.
Yeah, but you know what's surprising is that I was looking at the price of miners, and Hat8 is actually one of the few that the price kind of is in line with what was first issue.
Mara,
I find it funny.
Hut 8 has like 5 exahash of miners self hosted.
Yeah, but if you are coming from a share price, it's there. They haven't diluted to hell.
Yeah, their self mining business is going to die. They're going to be a hosting company. They've already said it.
I think
So
the right
How's that
term
a
is
good
electrons, of
example?
course.
They're not in the same business as us. They're in Bitcoin mining, but they want to host everyone's machines.
So to be in this competition against hash rate, because that is the real competition, hash rate, and you need to be cash flow positive and invest in a mining company to battle the hash rate. If the hash rate, of course, keeps continuing up, and we are assuming this is a general line because of the adoption of the network, we can only win with a good board. At this moment,
Yeah,
the board
the
is
ability to
not.
do well in mining is your ability to raise finance. Your ability to raise finance is your ability to tell a good story. Your ability to tell a good story is the strength of the board and what they've previously achieved. That's why we wanted a good board, but they put in a shit board because they wanted to do it themselves and make money.
Yes. So that's I for everyone, no matter on which side you are in the decision that we are trying to make push forward, the current board is not a board that we need. So Mike is making a plan. Celsius Facts and Number comes with another option. I, as a co-host, try to be neutral, but I also am aware of time and money, especially in the coming months and periods. So I pressure a little bit on both sides. What's the next step forward? And what can we do concretely to make this as a solution from both sides of perspectives? So people can make their own decisions and go with the options that we lay in front of us right now.
Yeah, from my side, the only credible player that can actually execute this is Mike right now, and he's willing to put the time in. He's got a plan, he's got a strategy, and no one else has a credible plan. We all might have ideas, but Mike's willing to do it. So, and he said, get 25%, and he'll give it a go. And he's making the investment in lawyers. He's doing it. He's motivated. He said what he wants out of this. And all I said is, okay, cool, we'll get you the 25%, but I also want to make sure that it's not done on just Mike's database, so that if something goes wrong, we can start again and say we've got the 25%. So, and that's where we are.
Ron, what would you suggest? Because you have you almost have the same idea, but it's a little bit a different outcome. What would you suggest?
But sorry, Ron, can I just clarify?
Well,
The reason you want to change the board is because you're thinking of making this company work, right?
Not necessarily. I just want to make sure that we have the right people that are motivated and balanced to make a decision, which I think at this stage we have the capital. I disagree with Tony and Simon about this being the company being badly run. I disagree with that. At least looking at the numbers and what they come up.
Okay, Brett Perry had all the information. He got fired because he wanted to give us a message. His message is, this is a piggy bank. This is cash burning. Shareholders, do something now. This is not a good business. That was the message he gave us.
Exactly. And my point is this. If you just move with putting creditors inside the company, very simple, very difficult. You can refuse it, right? You can refuse it, but then you can move with a shareholder meeting as you put it.
So putting creditors inside the company, like who the fuck cares? We need to salvage the investment that we're forced to make. You want professionals.
Tony, exactly. Who cares?
Yeah.
Because
Who
Ron Bar,
cares?
didn't you hear what Simon said? Do you think that like individuals have a better story to tell? Again, it's about raising money again.
Which creditors?
That's what I'm saying. Like, who cares if it's creditors? Liquidate this thing. Put the professionals to do it. Let them run a real auction, not like whatever Centerview did. Let them run a real auction. There's bidders. There's tons of bidders. I've spoken to bidders about this. I spoke to one bidder.
And we already have the infrastructure. We've spent on the BRICS infrastructure. We've spent on the litigation oversight committee infrastructure. We've got the infrastructure.
I spoke to a private mining company. They're bigger than Ionic right now. They don't have the cash on hand, but they want to go public. So the shell of Ionic, the shares, is worth value. You could probably sell those shares just for $10 million.
What is the difference of what you're saying compared to what we have right now? So we have the fact that your company. Let me just summarize, and so you can reply. So we have the sites that the company you have in mind wants. They don't have the cash, but we have the cash. We also have 80,000 shareholders. We are not losing enormous amount of money. We aren't. We are construction 4 sites. So you basically are saying, okay,
how do you listen to half of
this small company? I'm going to pass to you right away. So you're basically saying, let this small company take our assets. They don't have cash on hand, but they can give us a better deal. We get the liquidity there is, and we get the percentage of that company.
That's not what I said anyway.
Explain it again. Sorry, that's what I understood.
So in an actual liquidation, right? The first step is you got to figure out what's there and what's not there. What's built, what's not built, what needs to be built. The assets we have, like Cedarvale, you can sell that to a real company, right? Core Scientific wants it. They've already told me they want it. I put them in touch with Penver. I'm assuming it was a black hole, just like everything else. Nothing got done. Mara, Riot, all these companies. I spoke to CleanSpark. They want it. They want a breakdown of the assets. Yeah, okay. I haven't gotten that as a shareholder. How are they going to get it? All these companies want the assets.
So they want the assets, and why shouldn't we not want it? What is the difference here?
Just because they're real professionals and they know how to put the assets to use. We don't, and we're not.
So you're saying that...
All right, just listen. All right, just listen. Hold on. Let me say the whole thing. You listen to one part, and then you decide what the meaning is. Just listen to the whole thing first. You can sell the assets, whether it be cash deal, stock deal, whatever. You can distribute that to all the shareholders, right? You can liquidate the mining fleet to somewhere in South America where they have 2 cents, 1 cent power. You're not going to get much for it, but you'll get something out of it. You can distribute that to the shareholders. The shell, the Ionic shell, right? You can sell the shell to a company. In a reverse merger, they will take over, right? Not the assets, just the shell, the corporation itself. And then they can list on the NASDAQ because it's easier because we're a public reporting company. For them, it's a 2-year process. For us, it's probably 6 months. Assuming you have a real company, which we currently do not. You can get money out of that. There's everything else. You can sell everything. You can sell the parts. take the cash, take the shares, however the deal goes through, and you can distribute that to shareholders. You can sell Cedarvale to a real company. No one's going to have the cash to do that. They'll probably give you stock in their company, a publicly traded company, but that's okay. You can distribute the shares to the creditors. Or you can hold it in something like a litigation trust, and then you can liquidate over time and distribute either cash, Bitcoin, whatever, to the shareholders.
So you basically are telling that we should liquidate, give the shell of the company for other people to come in and take it public. So just the shell, no assets. Is that it?
So what I'm saying is we can wind down the entity, and then whatever money comes out of it, you distribute to the shareholders. And then on the Figure Provenance blockchain, you would basically get airdropped whatever comes out of it, right? You can choose Bitcoin, you can choose cash. They have the capabilities of doing both. You can choose ETH. But as long as you're holding the shares, kind of like the AST in the Nova Wolf plan, the equity tokens, similar to that, you'll get the dividends, whatever, right? Depends on how this thing goes. We can distribute the Bitcoin right away, we can distribute the cash right away, and then as things get sold off, we can distribute that. It doesn't even have to be quarterly, honestly. It can just be as it comes in.
The point is that the board has already destroyed the value. They had the opportunity to create value and they've destroyed it. So now we need to get it in the hands of someone competent. The time to create the value has passed.
So in the bankruptcy, everyone knew that they were going to get exculpations. So whether you did what's in the best interest of the creditors or you did what's in the best interest of yourself and your buddies and whatever, the UCC members, well, it doesn't matter because in the end, you're going to get a clean slate. But we're not in bankruptcy anymore. This is a real business. Well, I mean, it's not, but technically it is. All the people that were involved, they have liability there. All these people have liability, right? Why do you think Joel Block is no longer with the company? Just ask yourself that question.
I could see any reasons. He could basically have a conflict with the new board, with the new management team, right? And he's part of the past, correct? Couldn't he just be a victim of new management?
Okay, well, he's going to find out when we take over this board. He's going to get a letter for sure.
So, Tony, what you just described, is this, would you say I would direct the creditors to the plan of Mike, or is this a separate line?
So it's not Mike's plan. This is my plan. This is a shareholder-led liquidation. I called Mike, and I actually called him because we could use his blockchain to distribute the funds. But then we kind of, I don't know, partnered up, whatever you want to call it. So his original plan, and I guess he spoke to the board however many times, he wanted to take over the HUT deal, basically, the situation. That got rejected. I don't know the specifics, but whatever, I don't really care. At this point, this is just a remove the board, put in a new board, and then begin the liquidation process. And then everyone that was involved, they're going to get scrutinized. Did you do what was in your best interest, or did you do what was in the company's, the shareholders' best interest? We're going to find out.
Okay, so
the issue I have with Simon and Tom, $25 million that we know. So I think it's for me. I have.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just me, but you broke out there.
Yeah, for me too. I was not sure. Can you maybe repeat that, Ron Paul?
People interest in them. It can be an auction. I don't think the value that you can take from the assets probably will be like 4%, 5%. of your total claims. I think is not shown on the cash flows of the company. That's why I'm.
All right. Well, I think I know where you're going with this, but this company is a gamble. Greg Pesh said it himself, right? This is not going to get listed before 2025.
Why
This is not going to get listed on the NASDAQ before 2025. So who knows? Right? Q1, Q2, hopefully, right? Maybe. What's the cash position going to be by then? Are they going to have to take on debt? Are they going to have the oldest fleet in the industry? Who as a shareholder is going to look at their, Robinhood, Fidelity, whatever Vanguard account and be like, all right, I can buy Mara, I can buy CleanSpark, let me buy Ionic, right? Who's going to do that? Who in their right mind is going to look at this company, look at their website, look at the board, and be like, you know what? This is my company. I'm gonna put significant amount of cash into this company. Who's going to do that over the other options?
So, Ron, your plan needs someone who is going to do that. Who is that person, or how do you want to go forward? Because now we have all the information. It is valuable if you believe in and you take those numbers and the idea that can put forward. If people like to stand behind that, where can they go to? How can they make their stance with you together to do that? Because I hear that we have a person, Mike, he's not here today, but he is already in negotiation. So, from your point of view, there needs to be someone or a group of people who will do the same. Otherwise, creditors cannot make a decision. They only have one option at this moment.
My point is always for Mike to do this. So my understanding was that the proposal he made was just one proposal. So Tony is telling that he made numbers of attempts. I don't know what sort of attempts they were, but if we go over with a shareholder meeting, I think we should focus just on getting a majority of the creditors. Very simple. It's not too much different, as Tony said. I personally will not like people with bias. I don't think that's even capable of you trying to join a board with heavy bias or with an agenda and already on the plan. At least that's my position. The board should have independent members that are independent and are just following the fiduciary duty. So I'm not sure if I think the view of Tony seems very heavy. He's very focused that liquidation is straight away. I know that we have positive cash flows for the last 4 months in the bankruptcy, and I can only speak to that. I think the expense have to be controlled. The issue is if the board is hostile or not. So if you just put the majority of votes, you get everything that Tony is speaking of, and we can build from there. That's my point. If you want to try to force a straight liquidation, I hope you have a strong backing behind it, because I think this will eventually go to some court. Tony was saying that he intends to pursue and sue people. That's his point. I don't think that is helpful for the remaining shareholders. I think it will just slow more distributions. That's my point.
Yeah, I disagree.
Yeah, that's okay. It's good to have these both sides. So my logical step would be we host a space with Mike, and we have this discussion with Mike, and we go forward from there. Tony, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I understood that correctly. You pushed Mike for your idea to Mike. Mike is in possession of that plan, but are you in good relationship with Mike at this moment? Yes or no? Because I was not sure about that.
Am I with Mike Cagney or Mike Abate? I speak to both of them regularly.
Okay. So, do you? Because I don't have the communications with them. So, if Ron and you and
Listen,
Simon just left,
I only joined because a bunch of people were sending me this,
exactly.
and Ron is talking nonsense.
Yeah, but
Okay,
that's
Ron
okay.
is not
We
a
have different.
shareholder. He's an idiot. He was the guy telling everyone that Mashinsky did nothing wrong, that Mashinsky is misunderstood, that the cell.
But Tony, this is bring
Tony,
us forward.
that's a lie.
Ron,
Rob, I can speak to that. I can speak to that. I can speak to that. That's a lie. Since the initial days, I said, do not trust anyone. I have the receipts for that. It's on the live spaces. Maybe he is a good guy, but do not believe in everyone, including Alex, including Celsius. Please look at the facts. And there is a lot of manipulation in the crypto market on stocks. And that's one of the issues that really puts me off, is when people attack other people just because based on false information.
yeah, that's why
So
I don't want to
that's
focus
my,
on it. That's why I really don't want to focus on it
yeah.
because we know each other's history and we can drink a pint on it in the future maybe. But
Yeah, yeah.
Tony
So
and Ron, can we contact Mike, host a space, and go forward from there?
yeah, we can. I'm in contact with him. I can easily set it up. I think Tony as well. I just wanted to make sure people understand that once you do this, there is no turning back. Okay, there is just, I think there is only liquidation, and I'm not comfortable people again selling when BTC is under 50K. The same people like Tony and Simon was telling to sell the company when we are at 20K. They were saying that the company was not positive, had no positive cash flows. They were wrong. It has positive cash flows, and they are always focused on the depreciation of the assets. Assets that, and you have to understand this, the company went into bankruptcy. They had their hands tied. There is not much you can do, okay? So to make that as a big point to invalidate the entire concept, I think is wrong. I think is misleading. I think now it's the time to see if the company can provide or not, and you just have to make sure the board is aligned with you. I think that's very simple. There is no need to replace everyone. I think you should at least have a public, non-hostile proposal put forward. That's my point. Tony, I'm not going to call you an idiot besides you having many times the numbers wrong as well, telling this company was not profitable when it was. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think yeah. Okay, so hey Simon, welcome back. I tried to get forward, but we are playing on the man. So we are not going to do that. Let's host the space with Mike. I would like to invite the people who were on stage also today because we are more updated than a regular creditor. If we host a space with Mike, we are a step further ahead to the next step we can take in the future. I would suggest that Ron, Simon, and Tony, if I may be so freely, we contact Mike and we ask for a date. And I think it's good to do this within 2 or 3 weeks.
Guys, this is not the bankruptcy. We're not going to do this spaces circle jerk every single day. We are actively gaining shareholder votes day after day after day. I'm talking to whales every single day about getting their votes. I'm explaining the concept to them. They get it right away. They understand. They want to liquidate. I talk to large shareholders. I talk to small shareholders. Everyone's on board. The only people that aren't on board, seemingly, are the people that don't have any shares. And if that's the case, try to buy some shares, and then you can vote against it or not. But
Well,
the
that's
point
wonderful.
is,
If Mike
everything
can,
is
please,
everything is in motion. Everything is in motion. Us trying to convince Ron Paul that this is what needs to happen doesn't matter, right? The
no,
shareholders
you
are the ones
you
we're
don't
convincing, and
understand, Tony.
everyone I've spoken to, for the most part, has been thoroughly convinced. And if you're not, you will get a proxy vote anyway, right? As long as you're a shareholder, you'll get the vote. And if you don't agree or whatever the case might be, you could just vote against it. It's really not that complicated.
Well, you're not debating me because I try to push this forward, and what I try to say, if we host a space with Mike, he can do exactly what you are pushing for, and you have even more votes. So you can even make the case stronger. I think it's beneficial. It's beneficial for the stance of Ron, so he can explain it openly again to Mike, and Mike can explain his point of view and collect more votes. Essentially, now there are around 70 people. The space is recorded, so in the future more creditors could listen to it. A lot of creditors don't have the time to listen in, but maybe they want to make a decision because they are also in the waiting game.
I think I agree with everything you said. I think the only issue here is that we don't have anyone giving the perspective from the company or the board. That's the only issue, that we are basically also circle jerking here, that the company is not profitable, which it's not profitable because it's constructing two sides. That's my point. And it's in court, it's said in court, the company is cash flow positive. You can look at different perspectives. The company, at least the sites, have constantly proven Tony's view to be wrong. Okay, that's it. You can try to come from a depreciation point of view, but then you are just ignoring the entire bankruptcy process, where you had companies that cut the deals with Celsius, basically went against their orders to not mine, and they were mining from themselves. So you can look at the exam report. If there is a company that has too much bad karma, that has been full of things that have been wrong done to them, it's Ionic Digital or the Celsius Mining Company. It's so many companies trying to take advantage of the company when it was in bankruptcy. That's my issue. We don't have anyone to play the opposite sides. And as I said before, if the company still had around 200 million liquidity, I don't think it's clear that there is no future from the company. That's my position. I know that I'm not the only one. I know there are big shareholders also that believe in the future of the company, and the way that some people are just focusing on that they spend 135 million in cash but are not netting what they gain in Bitcoin, I think it's misleading.
Okay, but we still have to deal with the situation that is now right now. And for the creditors who are listening, a board member, Scott Duffy, he is listening in. I requested to if he could speak, but he didn't come on stage. He could explain a lot and maybe put some light on this matter. What should we do, guys? I think we reached to a point of conclusion. I'm for to speak to Mike in a space, although some were not really warm to that idea. But I would suggest let's try that. Can we just go through the speakers one more time? Ron, Simon, Tony, in conclusion of this debate. And if Scott Duffy wants to come up on stage to put his light on this matter, it would be wonderful.
Okay, my point is pretty simple. I don't think the company has ever been given an opportunity to prove itself. And from all the data that is out there, the company has been cash flow positive at least since before the halving. In court, according to the lawyer, which has to have some validity when you say something like that, it is cash flow positive. The company is building massive sites, which cost around 70 million, and you have to discount that. The issue that I have with Tony is just the way that he's pushing too hard on the liquidation, focusing just on the 135 million and is not putting the 135 million in context. That's my issue. That's what puts me I don't feel comfortable backing stuff like that. You can go your process. I'm open for you guys to do whatever you want
but
to
you're
do.
not a shareholder.
This is just exactly. I'm just
What are you
speaking here
comfortable with?
as an observer and someone who is looking at the numbers.
Okay, thank you, Simon.
I'd say in the decades that I've been 13 years I've been investing in this industry, the only companies that have ever worked is when you have a great team, an honest team, and a team really encaptured into the mission and vision and the ability to raise finance. And we don't have any of those. So I back Tony and Mike, and let's get rid of the grifters. Let's hold them responsible for their grifting. Let's liquidate. Let's move on.
Okay, Tony, do you want to reply on that? I think Simon spoke also for you.
Yeah, I mean, as of Friday, we had 7.2 million shares pledged. We got another 2 million left. Our attorney is sending over a letter to the board, probably next week or maybe the week after. I'm not entirely sure. Just a matter of time. So if you're on board, pledge your shares. If you're not, don't. Either way, this thing is moving forward. It's going to happen. If you're on board when it happens, vote yes to remove the board. And if you are not on board, vote no. It's very simple.
Okay, I think that concludes this discussion. If it's okay, Ron, I will make an end to the conversation. I want to thank everyone who made the time to listen in. I have seen some very familiar faces that we all got to use to each other the last few years, or initially each other's voices. Let's see what happens in the future. It's also part of investment, in my opinion. I'm looking forward to a space that makes some form of next step, and let's keep in touch a little bit with each other and speak to each other soon.